Welcome. We find ourselves today not in the familiar embrace of the wild, but amidst a different kind of jungle, the global marketplace. A storm brews not of wind and rain, but of tariffs and trade disputes. The architect of this tempest? None other than the United States, under the leadership of President Donald Trump. His weapon of choice? Tariffs, those age-old tools of economic leverage, dusted off and deployed with an almost primal ferocity. The target? A veritable menagerie of global players. China, the European Union, even long-time allies like Canada and Mexico have found themselves in the crosshairs. But what are the ripple effects of this economic squall? How are nations around the world reacting to Trump's tariff tactics? Join me as we journey across continents to examine the far-reaching consequences of this transatlantic trade war. Our first stop takes us to the east, to the world's second-largest economy, China. A land of ancient wisdom and burgeoning might, China has not taken Trump's tariffs lying down. Like a slumbering dragon awoken, China has retaliated with tariffs of its own, targeting key American exports like soybeans and automobiles. The impact on American farmers, many of whom depend on the Chinese market, has been particularly severe, but China's response extends beyond mere economic retaliation. There's a sense amongst some analysts that this trade war has awakened a deeper sense of national pride and self-reliance in China. They're looking inward, investing heavily in domestic industries and forging new trade partnerships with nations eager to fill the void left by a retreating America. The dragon, it seems, is learning to breathe fire on its own. The question is, will this newfound assertiveness bring stability or further escalate the conflict? Only time will tell. Across the Atlantic, the European Union, that bastion of unity and cooperation, finds itself grappling with the fallout of Trump's trade war. Traditional allies like France and Germany, while initially hesitant to engage in a tit-for-tat tariff battle, have nonetheless felt compelled to respond, slapping tariffs on iconic American goods like Harley-Davidson motorcycles and Kentucky bourbon. Yet within the EU there are whispers of discontent. Some member states, particularly those with strong economic ties to the US, view Trump's actions with a degree of understanding, even sympathy. They see it as a necessary corrective to what they perceive as unfair trade practices by China. This internal division presents a unique challenge for the EU. Can it maintain a united front against Trump's protectionist policies? Or will this trade war sow the seeds of discord within the bloc itself? The answer to that question may have profound implications for the future of the European project. The impact of this trade war extends far beyond these economic heavyweights. Emerging markets are feeling the most acute tremors. Southeast Asia, heavily reliant on global trade, is hit hard. The uncertainty and volatility in currency markets and disruption to global supply chains take a toll. Africa, brimming with potential, faces lost opportunities. Latin America fears a full-blown trade war could derail recovery. In the global economy, even those far removed can become entangled. Chapter 4. Canada and Mexico. Allies caught in the crossfire. Closer to home, we find Canada and Mexico, America's partners in the North American Free Trade Agreement, also feeling the heat. Canada, that bastion of civility and reason, has found itself on the receiving end of Trump's tariffs, with Canadian steel and aluminum deemed a threat to US national security. The irony, of course, is not lost on Canadians. Mexico, too, has faced the brunt of Trump's protectionist impulses, with tariffs imposed on Mexican goods and the threat of more to come. For a country already grappling with poverty, inequality, and the scourge of drug-related violence, these tariffs represent an unwelcome burden. Yet, amidst the economic anxieties, there's also a sense of defiance, a determination to chart their own course. Both Canada and Mexico have responded with retaliatory tariffs of their own, targeting key American exports. Moreover, they've been actively seeking to diversify their trade relationships, looking beyond the US to forge new partnerships with nations like China and the EU. Chapter 5. The Art of the Deal, or a Recipe for Disaster. So, where does this leave us? Is Trump's tariff tussle a shrewd negotiation tactic? A display of strength designed to extract concessions from his rivals? Or is it, as some critics argue, a reckless gamble, a dangerous game of economic chicken that threatens to upend the global order? The jury, as they say, is still out. One thing is certain, the world is watching and holding its breath. The stakes couldn't be higher. The global economy, that intricate web of interdependencies, hangs in the balance. Will cooler heads prevail, or are we hurtling towards a future defined by protectionism, isolationism, and economic conflict? The answers to these questions will shape the world our children inherit. It's a sobering thought, and one that should give us all pause for reflection. Chapter 6. American businesses navigating the stormy seas. Back in the United States, the impact of this trade war is being felt far beyond the Farm Belt. American businesses, large and small, are grappling with the uncertainty and volatility unleashed by this trade war. Manufacturers reliant on imported components face higher costs due to tariffs on raw materials. Some have passed on these costs to consumers, leading to higher prices for everyday items. The tech sector hasn't been spared either. Tariffs on Chinese electronics have disrupted supply chains and increased costs. Even the service sector is feeling the pinch. The tourism industry has reported a decline in visitors from China. No sector of the economy is truly immune from the ripple effects of a trade war. Chapter 7. The consumer feeling the pinch at the checkout. But perhaps the most immediate and tangible impact of this trade war is being felt by ordinary Americans at the checkout counter. From washing machines to clothing, from electronics to groceries, the prices of everyday goods have been creeping upwards, fueled in part by the tariffs on imported goods. For families already struggling to make ends meet, this increase in the cost of living represents a significant burden. It means having to make difficult choices, cutting back on essentials, and dipping into already depleted savings. The political ramifications of this economic anxiety are hard to ignore. A growing number of Americans, across the political spectrum, are questioning the wisdom of Trump's trade war. They're beginning to wonder if the short-term pain of higher prices is worth the long-term gain, if any, of a trade war. Chapter 8. A World Adrift, the Erosion of Global Cooperation. Beyond the immediate economic fallout, however, lies a deeper and perhaps more worrying consequence of Trump's trade war: the erosion of global cooperation. The post-World War II order, built on the principles of free trade and multilateralism, is under strain. The institutions that have underpinned global stability for decades, the World Trade Organization, the International Monetary Fund, the G20, are being sidelined, their authority challenged. In their place, we're seeing a return to bilateralism, with nations increasingly focused on securing their own narrow interests, often at the expense of others. This beggar-thy-neighbor approach, economists warn, is a recipe for economic stagnation and conflict. The retreat from multilateralism is particularly worrying in an era defined by global challenges that require global solutions: climate change, pandemics, terrorism. These are not challenges that can be tackled by nations acting alone. They require cooperation, collaboration, and a shared sense of purpose. Chapter 9. The Road Ahead, Uncertainty and Unease. So, where do we go from here? What does the future hold for the global economy in this age of Trump's tariff tussle? The truth is, no one knows for sure. The global economy is a complex, interconnected system, and predicting its trajectory is a fool's errand. One thing, however, is certain: the road ahead will be fraught with uncertainty and unease. The global economy is entering uncharted territory, and the rules of the game are being rewritten in real time. What's needed now, more than ever, is a sense of perspective, a willingness to engage in dialogue, and a commitment to finding common ground. The alternative, a world divided by tariffs, suspicion, and mistrust, is too bleak to contemplate. Chapter 10. A Call for Calm in the Midst of the Storm. The consequences of Trump's tariff tussle are far-reaching, from the soybean fields of the American Midwest to the factories of China, from the boardrooms of multinational corporations to the kitchen tables of ordinary families. The impact is felt worldwide. The global economy faces technological disruption, demographic shifts, and climate change, now burdened by a trade war. The road ahead is challenging, but we don't travel it alone. Through dialogue and cooperation, we can navigate this storm and emerge stronger. The stakes are high, but so is the potential for a just global order. It's a goal worth striving for, and the time for action is now. The future is in our hands, and so we conclude our journey not in despair, but with a renewed sense of urgency and purpose. The challenges posed by this trade war are undeniable, but they are not insurmountable. The future of the global economy, indeed the future of our planet, depends on our ability to find common ground, to bridge divides, and to work together towards a more just and sustainable future for all. Let us hope that wisdom, courage and compassion will ultimately prevail.